everybody is right to mention the issue of weapons. My understanding is that that part of Middle Africa is awash with illegal weapons, and it supplies many terrorist organisations across the middle of Africa, indeed even to the north and also to the south. None of it is right to highlight that. Perhaps maybe the Minister might be able to give us some indication of what's been done to try and address that. Thank you.
Lyn Brown.
Can I just say to the Minister, I can only imagine what it might be like to be sat there and be facing questions that she wasn't expecting. So I really am happy to have written responses to any questions that I'm asking that she doesn't necessarily have to her answers that she doesn't have to her fingertips. The past year has seen repeated reports of human rights violation by Nigerian armed forces, including extrajudicial killings and mass forced abortions. That's despite engagement on human rights within our security partnership. So I hope the Minister might be able to help us reflect on lessons learned. And I'd be grateful to know if there's a date yet for this year's security partnership dialogue and how we're navigating the difficulties caused by the contested election. And as we know, religious freedom in Nigeria isn't just about armed groups, because state institutions can also bear responsibility. We've heard last April, Mubarak Bala, president of the Humanist Association of Nigeria, sentenced to 24 years in prison because of blasphemous posts on Facebook. So I'm hoping that the Minister will be able to update us today on the latest developments in Mr. Bala's appeal. Sadly, the massive cuts to international development funding will have had an impact, limiting support for new programmes where the Nigerian people need it most. Bilateral aid to Western and Southern Africa has fallen from £1.12 billion in 2019 to just £345 million last financial year. It's a scandal. And thanks to the incompetent, uncontrolled Home Office spend, these budgets are falling even further to just £256 million across the whole of Western and Southern Africa. A cut of almost 80% in just 5 years will clearly block our ability to respond. But let's face it, the problem is not just about a lack of international aid. Sorting this out requires governance that responds to the needs and demands of the Nigerian people. Sadly, turnout in February's presidential election hit a new low. And with legal challenges still going on, the process isn't yet complete. I strongly welcome the commitment of the candidates challenging the presidential result to rely only on the courts, and why that legal process continues. I believe we need engagement with all political forces and civil society to inform priorities for our partnership over the next years. In February, this opposition joined the government in supporting sanctions against anyone who organised to disrupt peaceful, fair and free elections. But there have been credible reports of violations, both in the presidential election on the 25th of February and the gubernatorial elections on the 18th of March. There were several documented incidents of violence around polling stations during the presidential vote, and still more reports of violence and intimidation aimed at voter suppression on the 18th of March, and the issue is wider still. The technologies that were supposed to provide transparency and credibility failed on a huge scale. This has understandably led to even greater distrust of the electoral system by Nigerian voters. The UK provided support for these systems, so there are surely questions to be answered about why they failed. And when it comes to sanctions, I'd very gently say that the government's record on the killings at Lekki, where no action was taken despite calls from across this House, doesn't inspire huge confidence. So while I know the Minister can't comment on any specific sanctions designations, I hope she'll confirm the government are prepared to back their words with actions. Because what happened in the Nigerian election matters for religious freedom and for security in Nigeria. It matters because incitement to hatred and violence based on identity was used as a political tool. But equally, because if the Nigerian people lose trust in their government, I fear the violations we're discussing today will only worsen. It is clearly in the UK's interest to support security, human rights for all, and an inclusive, prosperous and sustainable economy in Nigeria. Nigeria's path forward is critical for the future of the region. So I hope the Minister will set up today how she'll secure a stronger partnership backed by a long-term commitment and resources that the UK and the people of Nigeria so urgently need.
Minister Trevelyan.